Is Chara in Deltarune? This is a question people have had on their minds since Chapter 1, and I plan to cover this question in extreme detail, covering every little piece of evidence with some of my own insights to finally get an answer to one of Deltarune's biggest questions. The very first thing we see in Deltarune is the Gonna Make a sequence. In this sequence, two different type of values are used. To explain, type of values are basically what decides the sound and appearance of text in the game. For example, Alphys' type of value gives her dialogue that technological sound when she speaks. And for the most part, different important characters have different type of values. In the intro sequence, two type of values are used, leading many to think the second type of value is Chara's voice. This is because many have pointed out that they go against the first voice, who allows you to create your vessel, and the text does resemble Chara's from the end of Genocide. However, this type of value is unique in that it is one of the type of values used by many characters to hide their voice, like King, or to make their voice sound more dramatic, like Susie. Many advocates of the second type of value being Chara have also noted that this voice uses kanji in the Japanese translation of the game, which is one of a few different ways of speaking in Japanese which varies with different characters, as they speak differently, like how some people speak more formally than others. This has been used as evidence for this type of value being used by Chara, as they have also used kanji. However, so does Susie, who even uses this type of value when threatening Kris in the school halls. I also think the second speaker could be Susie, because there is cut footage in the game's code where the scene continues and Susie's unique type of value that she uses for most of the game comes in and says, "Kris, wake up." This shows that this second speaker is likely not Chara. Another piece of evidence used for Chara's existence in Deltarune is the description of the birdcage that Kris throws you, the Soul, in at the climax of Chapter 1. This birdcage is described as having seen many crashes, implying that Kris has thrown their soul into this cage many times, and in Chapter 2, when Kris is taking their soul out in the bathroom, Toriel says they do this sometimes. Although it doesn't really make sense that Toriel would know that they're taking their soul out in the bathroom and not do anything about it, so maybe she's just talking about taking a while in the bathroom. This points to there being another possessor before us, as otherwise Kris would have no reason to tear out their soul and throw it in the birdcage or even own a birdcage prior to Chapter 1, meaning this second possessor could be Chara. Okay, next we have the possibility that Chara's come from Undertale to Deltarune, and although Toby Fox has said that Undertale's endings will be unchanged, the evidence for these theories is quite strong. Firstly and most importantly, you have all the things Chara says at the end of Undertale, like let us erase this pointless world and move on to the next. And we'll be together forever, won't we? Which alludes to Chara's return, particularly in another world like Deltarune's. There is also mystery dialogue in the code of Undertale that says the following. Greetings. You have made yourself completely clear. Understood. I, your humble servant, will follow you to the utmost. Now I must clarify this is 3 different characters speaking, named Demon A, B, C, and D. But one of them does use greetings like Chara, and to me it sounds more like just one person, especially since they all speak pretty formally, just like Chara. Now we have some evidence that points to Undertale's connection to Deltarune, which I bring up simply because it would mean Toby Fox's statement was untrue, and that Undertale's Chara could truly make a return. So first and foremost, you have Gaster passing your soul from Undertale to Deltarune. The first voice in the opening sequence of the game I mentioned earlier is highly likely to be Gaster. The vessel is referred to as a Goner in the code, like the fun event character Goner Kid. A fun event is a unique occurrence that has a rare chance of happening every time you play Undertale. Gonna Kid is incredibly similar to the Gaster followers, who are also fun event characters, devoid of colour like the Gonna Kid. And this voice is referred to in the code with the number 666, which the Mystery Man and Gaster are referred to with in Undertale. This is also not likely the Gaster from Undertale, as the music that plays during the Gonna Maker sequence is called Another Hymn, while the music that plays in the Mystery Man's room is called Hymn. Deltarune's Gaster says "Are we connected" at the beginning of the game when your soul teleports on screen, and when you combine this with how the Gaster in Undertale takes your soul after your game crashes at the end of Genocide, then that leads me to think that he could have then passed the soul on to Deltarune's Gaster. For the record, this is not Chara who takes your soul at the end of Genocide in order to then ruin your pacifist route, because Chara opposes reviving this world. Chara's dialogue on a second Genocide route says, "Should you choose to create this world once more, another path would be better suited." And there is a reason you continue to recreate this world. There is a reason you continue to destroy it. You're wrapped with a perverse sentimentality. I cannot understand these feelings anymore. Which shows that Chara still doesn't understand why you choose to recreate Undertale's world, meaning they didn't have a change of heart after the game crashes and revive the world at the end of the first Genocide. And should you choose to create this world once more, implies that it is your choice and that Chara cannot stop you. Whereas if they were the voice, then they could just not make the deal. And Chara remembers previous save files, at least once becoming the demon at the end of Genocide, and thus would have no reason to take your soul twice, since nothing changes if you do a possessed pacifist after 2 Genocide runs. So that means the character that speaks after the game crashes at the end of Genocide must be Gaster, but for all we know, he does forget previous save files, as that mystery voice doesn't change on a second Genocide run. And if this is Gaster, then it makes no sense to just never know what he plans to do with your soul. And so it would be answered in Deltarune, which to be done must mean that Toby Fox's statement about there being no connections between the 2 games must be untrue. There is actually even more evidence for a connection between Undertale and Deltarune, and I'm referring to Sans, who has been heavily theorized to be from Deltarune. This is because he bleeds like darkness, which we know they do because Lancer is worried about spilling blood, which he would only assume the likeness can do if darkness could bleed, and maybe even monsters do, which is harder to say, as a bunny monster asks Kris what it's like to have blood, implying they don't, but Susie says everyone bleeds, which wouldn't make sense if monsters couldn't, so the evidence is conflicting. Sans also gives you an Ice-E word search despite Ice-E never showing up in Undertale, and instead being a mascot to a pizza place in Deltarune. Also, the river person says, "Beware of the man who came from the other world," and the only person this is ever evidenced to be is Sans. One piece of evidence for the connection between Undertale and Deltarune that is admittedly less convincing is that if you believe in NarraChara, the theory that Chara is Undertale's narrator, and thus believe Deltarune's narrator is also a character in the game, and it makes sense that that character is Chara. So they make many references to Undertale which other characters wouldn't be able to make. If you subscribe to any of the theories that Kris has been to the Dark World before the events of Chapter 1, then if memories are stored in the body, which makes sense as Flowey has access to his memories as Asriel despite only having the dust of his body and not the soul in Undertale, then that would explain how Chara knows enough about darkness to describe them when you check them as enemies because they're in Kris's body. So Toby Fox seems to be heavily contradicting what he says about there being no connection between Undertale and Deltarune's world. Okay, so now we are moving on to the possibility that Deltarune's world has its own Chara, which is not Kris, as Kris is more like Frisk in every way. While Kris does like chocolate like Chara, saying 2 characters must be the same because they both like chocolate is insane, and it could just be a red herring. They also both have a fondness for knives, which admittedly is more concrete evidence as a fondness for knives is much less common than one for chocolate, but perhaps factors like Kris being actively possessed, having the same adoptive family as Chara, could influence this. Besides, it again can just be a red herring. The Chapter 1 ending where Kris pulls out the knife is a red herring in itself, because you think Kris murdered someone, but they actually just ate pie, put money in Asriel's drawer, and plug in the TV. You may be thinking that it really does sound like Kris is Chara from what I said so far, but here's the evidence for Kris being Kris, which is much stronger. Firstly, Kris is the same age relative to the other characters as Frisk is in Undertale. To explain, Chara is significantly older than all the returning characters from Undertale, such as Undyne, Alphys, and Monster Kid, which we know because several humans fell after Chara's death, and all these characters either outright say they've never met a human before, or are hinted to have never seen a human before, like how Monster Kid doesn't recognise you as a human in Undertale, probably because he's never seen one. So Kris's age better matches up with Frisk's, although Asriel is in college, so it seems that all the ages aren't going to match up to Undertale's anyway. Next we have Kris's general personality, which despite what people may say better matches up with Frisk's, and here's why. It's become somewhat of a Mandela effect thing that Chara was antisocial and a prankster, simply because Kris is, people first claiming that Frisk is Chara, that Chara was potentially antisocial because they were a human in a world of monsters, and that would make sense, but this is never actually said in the game. Chara is even implied to be loved in the underground, as the monsters say the king and queen treated the human child as their own. The underground was full of hope, and the ball game, which would have been made by monsters, described the Red Soul very positively. This is quite different to what we see in Deltarune, or in Hometown, which parallels the underground in many ways, which maybe isn't disliked, but it's just thought of as a weirdo. Furthermore, Chara is described as brave by the ball game, while Kris backs away from the closet. Characters mention how they have ran away from the bunker, and if you get to the closet before Susie by running, she says you must be used to running away all the time. And even if you ignored the ball game, since it never directly mentions the souls, and maybe the colours just line up on accident or something, Frisk is specifically linked to running away by their item, the stick, which has the secret effect of making it easier to run away from monsters, whereas Chara is not linked to running away at all. Also, a little theory of mine I figure I might add is that the weird mentions of Kris's fondness of apples is all hinting at the reveal that the pie is an apple and cinnamon pie, because if the pie in Undertale is a combination of Asriel and Chara's favourite flavours, which would make sense since Toriel famously asks our preference of pie in Undertale, and Frisk is not Chara, so their favourite flavour could be apple and not butterscotch, then the pie would be apple and cinnamon, which is just a guess, but I want to say it here, because it turns out to be true, and I am a genius. Now you may make the point that those could be red herrings, considering they are much less obvious than the connection to knives and chocolate. I doubt that. Combine all this with the fact that Kris looks much more like Frisk, with them having the same skin tone, and their names almost being anagrams of each other, it seems Kris does not take the place of Chara, and thus Deltarune can have its own Chara. Okay, so could Chara be in Deltarune? Yes, it is not impossible, and I think they could reveal many of the mysteries of Undertale's genocide route without even being Undertale's Chara, simply through clever writing. This isn't concrete enough evidence for me to be too confident in Chara's return. This video does confirm that it is indeed a possibility, all things considered. Okay, it's begging time. Please comment down below your opinion of the Chara Deltarune theory, and like and subscribe because as of writing this I have a measly 2 subscribers, and I'd appreciate them.